Thank you so much, and thanks everybody to still be here. I'm the last one separating you guys from the beers. Yep. So I would say I'll try to make it short, but I will probably rather just make it fast. Yeah. So Nagami has been around now for 10 years. So actually this year is our 10th anniversary. In 2013, we started the research at the Bartlett in London, in UCL, and 2 years later, with the excuse of a commission from the Centre Pompidou, we decided to embark ourselves in this crazy journey. So somehow I convinced my brother and my previous flatmates that are sitting there to not sleep for 10 years, and here we are. Basically, and it all comes from the digital, right? Like I mean, right now we don't discuss these things, right? This is assumed, but back in the days, actually, the digital in architecture is not at all. Greg Lin does anime form in the very late 90s. So we start thinking about forms and shapes that can be fluid, that you can stop at any given moment in time and materialize in a certain manner, but that is an alive organism. The result of that was really hammering through lots of geometric problems, right? Like trying to use conventional techniques for materializing these kind of crazy projects. But what was coming later was a new type of architecture, right? Not just trying to materialize digital architecture through traditional techniques, but actually really embed the future of technology in architecture. But to be honest, this adoption is actually becoming rather slow. Construction is the least digitized, we were discussing that yesterday, I think, is the least digitized industry right after hunting. Of course, digitizing hunting wouldn't be that fun. And we're actually lowering our production. This graph is from the States, but it could actually be applied to almost everywhere. And in fact, this is how the Henry Ford factory will be looking in 1913, and right now, obviously, in car manufacturing, things have improved quite a while. No, it's a completely different landscape. However, in architecture, even having that technology, this is one of the most cutting-edge examples of automated architecture, right? This is the case of Catera that unfortunately went bankrupt, but they are really not rethinking design at all. So we're still trying to materialize what we understand as a housing building that was actually literally the same in the 1930s, in the time of Henry Ford, and we're just trying to automate that process, but not really reconsidering how a building should be and how a building should look. No. In the world of design, this is probably this kind of connection with technologies is even easier to grasp. No, the Panton chair was the world's first plastic molded chair, right? Right in the 1970s, not even. But we don't talk about the Panton chair right now because of the technology it used, right? It was really revolutionary, new technique for creating new shapes, right? Right now, we talk about the Panton chair and we use and buy the Panton chair because it's a seminal piece of design. And then this same thing will happen to 3D printing. This was also discussed yesterday, right? This will also happen to 3D printing in quite a short period of time. So probably in the next 5 years, 10 years, no one will be talking about 3D printing as no one is talking about plastic molding today. And what will stay was actually the way we use the tool, a tool that will definitely and undoubtedly stay with us forever and will be part, and it already is, part of the industry. We're trying back in 2015, 2016, when we started Nagami, to really find expressions that are just born from an understanding of the technology, right? Forms and lines that are folded into chairs that truly respond to what plastic extrusion could do. And this was actually really the beginning. So this was our first garage with our first second-hand robots in 2016. Back in the days, my brother and Nacho, my other partner, we're just finishing building our extruder. We use our own technology, right? Because there was no Caracol or Seed or any of these companies now building extruders. So we actually had to build our own. In fact, my brother's apartment still smells like plastic after 1 year of development. Two architects making a completely novel tool, no? But it was important for us to situate waste material, right? Plastic, and always recycle or biodegradable or sustainable plastic in kind of the top side of design. No? So we partner up with Zaha Hadid Architects, with Ross Lovegrove and Daniel Woodrick to create 4 pieces that would be impossible to materialize without that technology, right? And we launched them in Milan Design Week in 2018, really finding expressions that are even today, right, almost 10 years later, very difficult to materialize. Like print over an object that is already printed, changing the directions, changing the colors, with having a perfect gradient of color, and even pushing some of the limits of 3D printing. As you will see, I'm not going to play this video, but maybe this other one. Really, yeah, here you said, pushing the limits of larger scale 3D printing to really create angles that go beyond the conventional, beyond the 30-degree, the 45-degree angle. Like, how can we make the best out of this design expression through, in this case, printing with 2 robots collaboratively. But that was the way we launched, the way we kind of started to started trying to create a market for 3D printing. We're talking about 2018. So the only kind of common example of 3D printed chairs was Dirk van der Kooi. So there was no brands doing 3D printed furniture, and therefore people were actually afraid of 3D printed furniture. When we were exhibiting somewhere, people were doubting if it's sitting on the chair because it was printed, right? Today, that's different. Everyone is coming to our stand here in this show and just sitting without asking, but that has been quite a challenge. And the biggest challenge was actually to, in that creation of that market, make it not only for a very kind of narrow part of the possible, marketing, design, and architecture. That will be the collector, the museum, the ones that can actually spend 20 grand on having a piece that is a special edition, but actually amplify the reach, widen the market up, achieving a very low production cost for 3D printing. There was no example on chairs that could be printed for 300 euros and therefore sold at 500. And this is really what makes an impact in the design market. So we started growing our catalog, making more chairs, again, more accessible chairs, all the kind of objects, getting our dogs in the pictures. That was one of the best parts of the story. Getting different colors, different transparencies, different understanding of texture. So really making the printing line a form of expression, from the micro texture to the overall form or the macro texture, no? And combining different workflows. Like this is a beer draft we did with Estrella Damm, when we are printing and CNCing simultaneously, right? But also taking into account all the possible failures that 3D printing can have at this scale. We face this a lot in our everyday clients or people interested in working with us, and asking which format should they send the file, right? We always say, look, just send a sketch and set up a Zoom meeting, right? the technology is definitely not at the reliability that it would be in the small scale. We're definitely not a printing service, and actually I don't believe there is a viable printing service at this scale. But actually, there's a way more interesting approach where we work together with other designers, with other brands, to see how to get the best out of the limits and the possibilities of 3D printing at this scale. But it's important to know how to push that technology. So, for example, this object here, this chest long, that was really pushing the limits, and you can see a little bit of the angles, and probably everyone here knows about the technology quite a lot. So we all know that it's printed from the side. Well, this took like 15 prototypes, 500 kilos of plastic, 300 printing hours, 3 months of rationalization, a lot of fighting, and a lot of headaches, right? So if we would only sell one piece, this will cost a fortune. So we will be again stuck in the hyper luxury and accessible market. What is a luxury in the object, but accessible in the price market? And for us, that turns a little bit more conceptual. And it goes back to the understanding of digital architecture that then not becomes, but a part of it starts to be framed, especially by Patrick, as parametricism. And parametricism kind of postulates itself as the complete opposite of Fordism. So rather than repeating a piece, the single piece, every single time, Henry Ford used to say it can be any color as long as it's black. No, so you can't even choose the color. To the complete opposite, every piece is different. And to be honest, that is actually partly right at this scale. No, like you can get in a bamboo this shape or this other shape, and it's okay, and the bamboo is not going to cry. However, when you go to the scale of interior design and architecture, the number of possible errors could multiply by the number of pieces, or even more. Which basically kind of starts to narrow down the use of this technology. You want to go to this like hyper specialized or shaping, no? Every shape being the same, being different, sorry. So you spend more time in prototyping and less time in production, which would mean to a much higher retail price and therefore a much smaller market. And this is what is limiting some of the application of this technology to what we always call the 1% of buildings in architectural terms, which is just the Guggenheims and so on. Because if we want to make every single piece different, and we need to have through this amount of development, we will always incur in very high prices. So how can we find the right space for large-scale 3D printing? And again, perhaps 3D printing at a small scale could be much closer to this eternal kind of variation of parametricism. Large-scale 3D printing situates itself in a different kind of ground. What we perhaps identify as a much higher percentage of adoption in the architectural market, or the new space for 3D printed architecture, a sweet spot. No? So what do we need to achieve that level? No? First of all, we need to understand 3D printing as a commercial venture, right? This, of course, we all started with just one robot, a garage, and perhaps coming from designer, from engineer, from fascination about technology. Today we have 21 robots. And we're really trying to take into account all the stuff that is not taught in the design or engineering school, but about efficiency, about cash flow, about really understanding this as a company. What is the kind of optimal product, the optimal rate of manufacturing, and 1,000 million things that you need to understand for getting this into a profitable business, right? Because otherwise, if it's not profitable, it will just end up dying, and you can't keep on innovating. Yeah, this is not just for making money. It's actually because without money you disappear. Yeah. So this is the lab in the upper level of a 4,000 square meter factory in my hometown in Avila, and. When we started that's 5 robots, but we started working on larger projects, and we realized of the importance of the economy of scale in this kind of semi-industrial business. So the more robots you have, actually, the lower your production cost becomes. So what is the right number of robots for the right number of people, and is that really hitting a competitive price? And that question became very evident when we landed a very ambitious project for Real Madrid. I don't know if someone in the audience supports Barca. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for supporting Barca in general. So anyway, so we basically had 80,000 seats coming from the Real Madrid Stadium from Santiago Bernabeu. And we wanted to give the opportunity to the shareholders and to the funds to really transform this seat in something different, in a piece of art, in a chair, in something that you can use, that you can enjoy, not just a piece of plastic. So 80,000 is a really large number. And we also made our lives very difficult by giving so many options. So there were like 7 forms with 7 colors, endless possibilities. We even had to catalog every single seat in the stadium. So there's 80,000 of these pictures, right? And more importantly, in order to satisfy the possible demands, we had to install 16 new robots. Yeah. This was only possible because we make our own technology. So it was much more streamlined, and we created a new part of the factory in the bottom area with these 16 robots so that we can deliver seats in a much shorter time. So if you can't print faster because of gravity and material properties, then just print more, right? So that was the solution, and this really opened up different opportunities as well. No? So having this kind of project where you really start pushing 3D printing as giving so many opportunities to the customer, which you couldn't otherwise. With a traditional manufacturing, you would probably offer like 1 or 2 options of that chair, right? So how this plays out in the way we deal with products, and how we offer customization, but within a controlled range. So we have a catalog of products with more than 70 references, but we then offer, especially companies, but also individuals, to play out different customization levels with these products. So, for example, in this project with the Pereira Theater in Ibiza, it was a theater. If you go to Ibiza, you must go there. It was a theater closed for more than 16 years, and they wanted to have their own furniture for an edition of 250 chairs, 100 tables of one type, 100 tables of another type, 20 or 200 stools, right? So it's very short numbers, and there is no technology in the world that could make that like a particularly designed product for just 250, right? At least at an affordable price. And that's where 3D printing becomes the only viable solution. But also you need to have the capacity to respond to such a demand, So in the end, it's perhaps like 900 different products to be delivered in a couple of months. So if you don't have 21 robots, then you will really struggle to deliver this on time, So we start to really play out this idea of kind of in between this personalization or eternal personalization, the promise of 3D printing, with getting closer to mass production. So it's kind of a field somewhere in between. The same thing happened with Porsche. So Porsche came, saw the chair at Pereira, loved it, but they wanted a version just for them. So again, a very short edition, 300 chairs made for Porsche that then started to kind of multiply into the entire atmosphere of this pavilion that they were using for launching the new Macan. So getting the kind of the textures of the chair into the bar, the chandelier, and other kind of products, and even using their space as an arena for launching new products, like these chaiselongs and chairs with Karim Rashid. No? And I mean, all this kind of a story starts to like pose a much wider and probably more important question. I'm an architect, and that's why I ask this about architecture. You can apply it to your own field. So why to 3D print architecture? I mean, of course, this is a simple answer. There's one machine, infinite number of products. So you don't have to deal with the stock. Then, obviously, another answer that this audience, of course, knows very well, distributed manufacturing. If we will manage to actually increase or widen up the market for 3D printed architecture, and we will have like 3D printed hubs in every continent, of course, we would spend much less CO2, and it will become also cheaper, reducing taxes and so on. So we're now talking to the distributors and I'm planning to expand the business to different continents in this year, right? To really start working locally with a material that we consider an unfortunately unlimited source, but a material that we can't live without. I mean, it's great that now we're trying to create all the kind of plastics and bioplastics, but we can't eliminate plastic from our life. Like plastic was the material that made accelerating progress, right? And the greatest designers of all times made products simpler, cheaper, more accessible, so that they are now part of our everyday life. And plastic became also part of the locomotion ecosystem at the time, part of architecture. In the 60s and 70s, we were dreaming with inhabiting plastic capsules, right? With fiber reinforced plastic, and having furniture that would come out of the wall, that would become a continuous and personalized space. It all died in the 90s for a simple reason. Scientists already knew plastic was going to be with us forever, but in the 90s they uncovered it, and that's what eradicated that whole movement. But today we have 8 times more weight in plastic waste than in people. So each of us is equivalent to 650 kilos of plastic, yeah, which is insane, and this is growing. And again, we're not going to live without plastic. So how can we start increasing the demand for this material? We've played out different scenarios. Can we work with environmental organizations like Parallel for the Oceans to recycle on sites and transforming, creating local economies? And we've tested this model with on-site printing in Selfridges, in COP26 in Glasgow. And we're really trying to get that model into an industrial setup, right? So that's probably, if I come next year, hopefully we saw how Nagami starts to be in other continents as well. And it all started with chairs. Architects love testing ideas in chairs. Chairs are mini buildings, so they need to resist a human body, and it's way cheaper to test things in chairs than in buildings, right? For obvious reasons. So every seminal chair is actually testing architectural features. So we started going from chairs to much larger elements. Like this sculpture we did with Ross Lovegrove of 3.5 meters that we printed in 72 hours. And actually 48 hours, sorry. Yeah. My brother was just looking at me like, no, that's too long. 48 hours. Today we could print it in around 30 something, right? And how can this large scale for real start to become architectural? Can we go to 12 meters assembling pieces? And how can we assemble these pieces? No? So we start really dealing with questions that have been present in architecture forever, but that we didn't have to rethink because we didn't have another technology. Like how can you connect efficiently to 3D printed pieces? How can you waterproof 3D printing? Like how many layers do you need to have? What is structurally viable? Fire testing, coating, etc. So there are so many questions that start emerging when you go to this truly large scale. And we tested this in different scenarios, like this, again, 3.5 meters sculpture with Nicolo Casas, and partly for the oceans, or this facade that we did for Christian Dior in Marbella, where we really need to investigate the deformation of the panels so that we see what's the maximum size that we can print. Connections are now becoming part of our everyday life. We think more about connections than in other parts of printing features, right? So, 3D printing allows us to hide these connections, to give this effect of continuity, like to have these 9 meters in 6 panels that really look like one, to really start playing out with the continuity of lights, right? And really go in retail spaces and make them shine, no? Create something completely particular for them that is also kind of screaming sustainability. And actually, most of the times, we work a lot in high-end retail especially, and also in hospitality. So these guys are renewing their shops every 6 months, depending on the brand, right? And they used to just take it all and throw it to the bin on one night, right? We take the material and we shred it in our own facilities and repurpose it. And we're working in that direction with different brands. Many of them I can't talk about yet in this presentation, but we've been showing like a little bit of this is Cartier, for example, with having kind of their own expression, their own texture. We've investigated in the full interiors where, the furniture, the lamps, the lighting becomes part of the whole ecosystem that gets expressed from the walls. No? We've created prototypical rooms where different types of 3D printing are living together and also combined with kind of more rustic operations or material elements, right? We've worked with hotels like this one in Ibiza. This is Ushuaia that has been recently renovated, having like a specific design for their suites that then gets obviously expressed in every single one of them. And really importantly, we take an idea that the brand is trying to express through their product, through the content that you through their marketing, right, and materialize it into a physical form. This is a very special project for us with EcoAlf. EcoAlf is an incredibly responsible brand. They only work with sustainable materials, especially with recycled plastic. And actually, they have an incredible network of fishermen taking plastic from the ocean and they transform it into new clothing. So they wanted to represent this idea of inhabiting a glacier that is cracking and melting because of climate change. And this is really expressing the way we work. So we take a brand, a designer, or someone that wants to materialize an idea that is impossible to make with other kind of techniques. So how can you create this texture that looks like as snow and ice that is melting slowly and suffering the wind going through it, no? Like how that really becomes an expression of the brand, and how this gets kind of materialized from the furniture to the walls to the whole environment. How can we take this technology and use it as architects, right? So in this case, we're doing the entire interior, like obviously going from the decision of the flooring, which is not 3D printed, to then the 3D printed expression in the walls, in the furniture, right? How can this become also a structural understanding of the material, no? Like Robert was talking about the septa chair, where you need to fold the material, when you need to reinforce parts. You should try to use the material only where and when it's needed, right? And so how can this become a structural principle? So you can go from a piece that has a very dense material to very porous and much lighter. So we used to run structural analysis, for example, like in this volt structure. But there is also now a printability analysis, no? So you need to, like, this is the optimal shape structurally. This is the optimal shape for printability, no? And how can you start to balance out these new conditions, no? And how this starts to be an expression also in the way the building or the architectural piece or the product looks at every part of it, no? So you see here parts that become more porous with parts that become denser and more opaque. So it's expressing the structure, it's expressing the way it's connecting, is really creating another kind of connectivity between pieces, also based on 3D printing features. So this is something that we're really using for testing new ideas on how to reconceive architecture, in this case, through 3D printing. How can you integrate channels? How can you make pieces that move? Like, what is a 3D printed door? No. We made like this door, for example, you see in the image of the right that probably you are not realizing, but that's a 3D printed handle, no? So every single part of architecture needs to be rethought so that is efficient with this new technology. We put together like some of these ideas in this project that we really love, which is a portable toilet. And we love it not only because it's, again, investigating new features. In here, we're creating a sliding door, integrating a toilet within the print. But also, it gives us tools for rethinking objects that we have assimilated for a very long time. Like if I ask you guys what is a 3D printed toilet, you all remember the horrible toilets that when you go to a hospital, to a festival, no? It's probably the worst. Hopefully no one here have designed any of those. I'm just going to say it's the worst design ever. And it stayed forever with us. We see it everywhere, no? So how can we really rethink objects that we consider just stuck in a certain shape through 3D printing and also make that in a sustainable manner, no? So all this kind of research start to lead to smaller conceptions of buildings. So we're really going step by step from chairs to large sculptures to interiors to small pavilions. In this case, this is a 9-meter diameter pavilion where we are investigating the structural properties of plastic, but also how can you make a facade, how can you do waterproofing, how can you connect different pieces, how this building becomes a three-dimensional conception of material, no? And how that can simplify the printing process while dictating the way this should look, no? So it's really looking this way because of the pieces that are going to be printed, no? So this is an ongoing research that hopefully will finish soon, where architecture becomes something like it's almost like a Lego for grown-ups, no? So how can you connect pieces of architecture rather than having layers and layers of material? No, if you look at any building, you will have the structural layer, then you have the insulation, then you have facade, then you have, right? How can this be simplified through 3D printing, right? And I mean, not so much structurally, but if you want to see a little bit of a glimpse of this, please visit our stand together with Smart Materials, as in, what is it, 12.1? 12.1, where we're putting together some of these ideas. And if you don't have time or if you need to see more, you can come to see us in Madrid anytime, or in Avila if you want to see 20 robots in action, right? So thank you so much.
Yeah, so actually my boss promised me to see 20 robots in action, so yeah, we will do a business trip from ISMD, hopefully.
Good.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, promise, huh?
So, any questions from the audience? Oh, that was fast.
Hello, I'm Olga Blańska.
Hi again.
So I tried to understand from your sweet point. And correct me if I'm wrong. What I took it from it is like limited amount for very exclusive clients. That's the sweet spot for 3D printing right now.
Not really, actually.
Because it's like, because from what I see, it's like, from my experience, the material can be relatively cheap, but the printing hours are extremely expensive. So how you see that? Because it's almost unfixable. I believe even with the 25 robots, you count 1 hour per, how many euro per hour, you know? So that's my question.
It's a very interesting question because, I mean, I couldn't go into so much detail there, but what we're starting to discover is the economy of scale of 3D printing, right? So just to picture it very easily, if you have 1 robot, you need at least 2 people, right? Because, you know, you might go to the toilet, so someone has to stay with the robot, okay. But you also need your core staffing for a company. So you need marketing, you need sales, you need administration, right? So your ratio between staff and machines is very favorable for staffing, right? So you might end up, if you have only 1 robot, perhaps you have like 5 people if you have a very slim company with a very, very small production capacity. In our experience, things start to work out with 5 robots or more. Right? Where, you know, perhaps those 2 people or 3 people, or you can dimension it correctly for attending 5 robots, and you can start having the main core of the company. That ratio, right, go way lower if you start growing towards 21 robots, was 40 robots, right? Because as you said, actually the material cost is not a high impact in the price at all, right? But 3D printing is not that fast. So you can't just like create chairs in a matter of seconds. But, you know, perhaps a chair prints from 3 hours to 10 hours, right? So I think the key for that, and we're starting to discover it, is first, having the right balance between staffing and manufacturing capacity, machine, no? So between OPEX and CAPEX. And the other one is obviously to make sure that your CAPEX is running 24/7, right? Yeah.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
Is that means that your hour for printing is cheaper than other companies?
Exactly.
Oh, lovely.
Okay. I mean, don't
Note
take
that down.
it
Note that down.
Yes, it is. But so that this narrows your email tomorrow, it's cheaper if I have a high percentage of use of my machine hours, right? Which means if I have them working 24/7, that becomes cheaper, right? If I have maybe 20 feet, right? It's a little bit more expensive. There is a part that depends on how we are at that moment in manufacturing and use of our capacity. And obviously, the biggest part is your project. So if you come with a project that makes us use 21 robots for 3 months, printing, like the hourly rate for printing becomes way lower. Yeah. And that obviously, yes, because we have the capacity, that becomes more affordable than with other companies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But order a big project.
Another raised hand.
Or lots of numbers of a chair or whatever you have in mind. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much. As long as I understood it, all the material is not recycled, right?
Everything is recycled.
Everything is recycled.
Yeah. I mean, it's recycled. Everything is sustainable. Let's say the world of materials is huge right now. I mean, like polymers have changed radically in the last 5 years or so. So we have, obviously we work with PLA, with recycled PETG. We integrate, and that's part of the partnership. So you can look at it in the stand with the smart materials. So we're integrating coffee grains, oyster cells, wood dust, you name it. We can actually integrate almost any kind of organic waste, up to 30%, in a recycled plastic pellet.
Okay. Then somebody told me that every products of you are not recycled. So that's
Obviously, it must be someone from the competition.
Okay. Yeah, but then your argumentation is coherent. No,
Yeah,
makes
it's
sense.
all a lie.
I see,
Yes. I mean, actually, obviously is the fundamental part of the company. If not only because we care and we do, and we went for that from the very beginning. When in 2016, no one was giving a shit about sustainability and recycled plastic or any of that, and we really went for it. So it's been really driving the force of the company from day one. Yep.
Hey, Manuel.
Hey again.
I have a background in architecture, so we know in the market sometimes manufacturing is not ready for the design. Sometimes design falls behind compared to manufacturing. Right now, I guess you have the technology, and you guys are incredibly good designers. I've seen your work. I'm not just saying in front of your face. Have you ever felt you need to compromise design because the market is not ready? Or
yes.
When do you think you need to sacrifice that?
Yes. Look, I actually had a meeting right yesterday. I hope the client who hasn't signed yet is not watching this. This is not recorded, is it? It doesn't matter.
It's on the internet, it's a live stream and there's a video.
Okay. No, but that's fine. I'm going to say it again. The client said, look, it's too elegant. Yeah, it's too elegant. And so at first I'm like completely shocked. Is that when is that a bad thing? Too elegant. And then I understood what he meant. Is look, I need something that my clients understand, and my clients understand this kind of stuff, right? Like my clients would understand a normal portable toilet in a festival, but they wouldn't understand this. So some appreciate, some don't. I think we've moved a long way in these last few years, right? Since we started, like almost 10. And now, obviously, there is a wide adoption of this technology coming first from luxury brands. Like, I don't want to say almost every brand, but actually many brands are working with 3D printing and not hiding it, actually exhibiting it, saying, look, we're working with new technologies and we're sustainable. So people are starting to understand when you work with Dior or with Jimmy Choo or with Cartier or other companies work with other brands as well, then that kind of reinforces the idea that the product is okay. The product is exactly the same. It's just that because of the use of these luxury brands, you are validating it, right? So I think there is still, this is really not at an industrial level yet, but you see here millions of different applications, and this will start to really hit an industrial setup very soon. However, the first companies that started with this really had no idea how to make it work at an industrial level. No? And again, there's no companies with 40 robots or 100 robots and part of a much bigger industrial setup and working on the opportunities of this very seriously yet. But it will happen in maybe the coming like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? So yeah, again, this is here to stay, and people will understand much better the opportunities and the kind of design that emerges from this technology. Right now, we're in a middle ground, right? In a stepping stone. Like some people understand it, some people not yet, but they will.
You're right. Maybe last question from the audience.
Yeah, there.
You have to fight now because you both raised your hand.
Hello, sir. Firstly, thank you for putting art into this. Really appreciating your work. My question is, who's your right customer? And when do you say no to our projects?
Okay. Our right customer is, of course, the one that pays in advance. Does it exist? No, our right customer is the one that is curious, flexible, and committed. Yeah, and those three are equally important. So someone that comes from a little bit of naivety and interest, say, look, I have this idea, I've seen your work, I like it. Let's see how we work together to try to materialize that idea, right? That is the perfect one. Meaning, we like working with brands, designers, architects at the beginning of the process. We like to work with those that are interested in understanding the technology to see how to push it forward, and that take our help to make that push, right? To be then a little bit more specific in terms of typologies, now we're looking at large projects. Large projects being in the retail sector, we look for brands that are not doing one shop or two shops or just a sculpture here or there, but that want an entire new image for their shops that might be temporary or not, and that is becoming an large volume. So they're doing like shops in all over the world. The same thing with hotels. So we're working quite a lot with hotels, because we can offer a personalized solution that then gets repeated a number of times, right? As many as the rooms you have. No? So that's the other client that is now popping up a lot. The advantage of having such a large capacity while having that, the opportunities common to 3D printing of personalization is take on those kind of projects, and that's what we're focusing our efforts on. I'm not sure if that answered all the questions. Yeah.
Okay, he looks happy. Thank you very much, Manuel.
Yeah. Thank you.